You're listening to Create Wealth Through Franchising, and I'm your host, Kim Daly. In my 20 years as a franchise consultant, I've helped hundreds of people achieve their dreams of building and scaling franchise businesses to create wealth. The interview you're about to hear can also be found on my YouTube channel, where I post new franchising content multiple times per week. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and to my YouTube channel at kimdaly.tv. Now, enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Daily Coach YouTube channel. Today, we're going to have a great and inspiring conversation with my great friend, Kevin Wilson. He is the CEO of Buzz Franchise Brands, here to talk to us today about building a franchise brand and selling it to private equity. There's a lot of, I think, misconceptions about what private equity may mean to a franchise business that we want to dispel today, but also inspire those entrepreneurs who have the dream to build their own franchise brand and bring it into private equity. What does that look like? What does it take? Why is private equity interested in a franchise? Those are all the questions that we want to cover today with my good friend, Kevin Wilson. Kevin, welcome to the Daily Coach YouTube channel.
Hey, good afternoon, Kim. It's great to be with you and excited to have our conversation today.
It's going to be awesome. But before we dive in a little bit, let's set up a little bit about your background and how you got into franchising and started building Mosquito Joe in order to bring it to that amazing finish.
Sure. Very quickly, my background's a little different than maybe most you might see in franchising. I started my career at Bain & Company, large management consulting firm working for big companies, and but always was very entrepreneurial and left the firm, started my first franchise called Benny's Bagels. And I don't know, Kim, you may not even know that, but it was in Dallas, Texas. We opened a chain of bagel stores.
More because I'm a carbophobe than because I'm not old enough necessarily.
That's probably true. Well, selling bagels to Texans back in the mid-'90s was quite a challenge. It looks like a donut, but doesn't quite taste like a donut. So that was fun. And we grew that business to 30 locations. I went back into big business, mostly in the aviation industry. Down in South Africa. And then I spent several years in private equity myself, and in many cases making investments in franchising companies before breaking out on my own about 10 years ago. We bought a small company called Mosquito Joe. It had a couple trucks, a few hundred customers, and then we turned that business we rebranded it, raised money, hired a team, and then grew that through franchising to about 350 locations in the country, 34 states, and we sold that business. But since then, we've also built and started to grow other businesses: Pool Scouts, Home Clean Heroes, and British Swim School. So that's a little nutshell of my background.
It's so unbelievable. So we're going to backtrack a little bit because you blew right past this whole Mosquito Joe thing.
Okay. Yeah, we can do
So when you acquired Mosquito Joe, was it with the intent of building it and selling it into private equity?
Not exactly. It was always with the intent of building a great company. And if you do that, you start with the foundation, you build a good team, you build it with good franchisees, you make sure that the system works, then you have a lot of options after that. One of the options is to sell the business. Another option is to continue to grow it. We considered all those options, but it was never right from the very beginning to sell the business. It was all about building something that really worked well, that helped make franchisees successful.
It really is a great company. I can attest because I placed many a franchisee into Mosquito Joe. So always had strong validation. Okay, so you didn't start out on that path. So you were just building a solid company. I guess you weren't trying to meet certain targets or markers to then say, okay, now we're ready to move on to the next thing.
No, not exactly. I mean, we raised money from outside investors, but it was always individual money. It was never institutional money. So it allowed us a little bit more flexibility. Certainly, we didn't feel like we ever had a gun to our head to get some sort of exit at any one time. But having said that, when somebody, an entrepreneur takes money from investors, there's this obligation to, as a good fiduciary, to grow that business, grow that investment, and ultimately give them a return on their money. And so we had to evaluate a lot of options. We had to evaluate do we bring on debt and provide a distribution that way? And I didn't really like doing that. I didn't want to saddle the company with debt. Um, Another option was to sell all of Buzz franchise brands. At that point in time, we had Pool Scouts and we had Home Clean Heroes. But I really liked what I was doing. I had a dedicated team at this point in time running Mosquito Joe. So the other option was just to carve Mosquito Joe out and run a process just for that company. And so that's what we chose to do. But one of the things when we did that was I knew every franchisee personally, and I wanted to make sure that wherever they landed, wherever we sold to, they were going to be in a good spot. And so we ran the process, and we ended up finding a good home for them with Neighborly, and which is backed by private equity called Harvest Partners.
Hey, Daily Coach fans, if this franchise sounds like a fit for you, I would love to be your Daily Coach. Email me right now for a totally free consultation at inquire@kimdaly.tv. So there is that myth out there among the corporate refugees who find the Daily Coach, and they were laid off because private equity came in and now their position was eliminated. So how does private equity affect franchising? Is it more positive than negative, or could it be both?
I mean, I think it absolutely could be both. I think it really comes down to the firm, their view. In this case, Neighborly was a well-known franchising company in the country. They're very large in the service brands concepts. They're well run. This was really an acquisition by them, where Neighborly then is owned by private equity. So I felt like with Mosquito Joe, the management team that was going to be going with the business, all of whom I'm close to, as well as those franchisees, were going to be part of a new family that would be well run. Um, it ultimately, as an entity, Neighborly will likely be sold again because that's what they've done historically. I think they've been sold 4 or 5 times. But it won't really impact the franchisees. At the end of the day, the franchisees have their franchise agreement that they've signed, and they have to, all those obligations have to be honored by the acquirer. But the most important thing is to make sure that they're with a group that understands franchising and understands the support that's needed for franchisees.
Yeah, so certainly Neighborly
Neighborly
does or
absolutely
did.
does.
Yeah, that's their core business
Absolutely.
is franchising. So that makes a ton of sense. So, I mean, it does it culturally, I'm coaching my candidates when they start thinking about a franchise because nobody wakes up, no offense to how cute Mosquito
Right.
Joe is, but nobody really wakes up and goes, "Oh, yeah, show me that mosquito business,
Yeah.
Kim," right? So there's a little sales job on my part I got to do. But really, so it comes down to you're investing in leadership, you're investing in people. I want you to find people, not a widget. The widget can become irrelevant if the people behind the widget aren't smart enough to keep adapting and driving that brand and that widget
Right.
forward,
Absolutely.
right? So what happens to the culture of and the leadership when the leadership change comes in? What happens to the culture that franchisee raised their hand and said yes to? Is that a very like a delicate dance that has to happen in that buyout situation?
I think it depends on the franchisee and the individual, and everybody can. So I actually believe that most franchisees, they create a culture in their company for themselves, or whatever that is. They have employees, they have customers. They're going to create their own subculture of whatever. And I think that's for a franchisee. I think that's largely the most important thing for the success of their business. If you move up a level to their relationship with the franchisor, we have a unique culture at Buzz Franchise Brands. It's very different than Neighborly's culture at than we are. Their culture works well for them. Our culture works well for us. I think the management team of Mosquito Joe is the one probably more impacted by culture differences than, say, the franchisees are when an acquisition goes through.
So, for the entrepreneur who's listening, who has the idea of building a franchise brand and taking it, bringing it into private equity, what advice do you give to that entrepreneur?
You can never go wrong when you focus on the people, right? And I think if you focus on your people, you take care of your people, you develop a good strategy for the business, hit your targets, grow it, you're going to have a lot of options out there. That's sort of the approach that we took. I've seen that similar approach with franchisees as well. I know you probably want to talk about that as well, but I mean, I've seen the similar approach with franchisees where, they've got a view of where they want to be in 5 years. They want to get a certain number of territories. They want to scale those territories to a certain level, and then they want to leave enough for there's more growth for the next person coming in. But at that point, they've been at it 3 to 5 years, and it's time for them to realize their liquidity event. And very common.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I'm coaching all of my candidates to always begin with the end in mind and not to think so long term, because that's a big, weighty decision that really becomes hard to make. But if you set yourself up that within 5, 7, maybe up to 10 years, you want an exit for yourself, whether that's, passing it on, selling it to a manager or selling it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And let's say that you get there and you're having the time of your life and you keep going, it's a win. But if you get there and you're ready to sell, it's still a win in your mind. And I just like that better than people feeling like this was going to be the thing I did for 15 years. And then at year 7, they're like, man, I want to sell this business. And in some way, it sort of feels like a little bit of a failure.
Yeah. I mean, look, we had, a story, Kim, I love to tell. And I think they set it up better than anyone. It was a couple that came to us from Baltimore. He was a former U.S. Airways pilot, and he was currently he was a pilot with he flew the private jet for Under Armour. And when he met me,
Not a bad gig.
no, great gig, right? I mean, he said, but you'll like this. He said, Kevin, my dream here is, right now I walk up the steps of that airplane and I turn left. I want to be able to walk up the steps and turn right. And so that just resonated with me right away. And so
As a pilot.
right. And so he said, look, I want to make sure that we have enough to realize what we want to do. So they took 5 territories. I think they came back and bought a 6th and maybe 7th after the second year. But they grew their business to a level where they had set their goals. They then ran a process with at this time, we had just sold to Neighborly. They ran a process with the development team at Neighborly, and they found a buyer for their business. Their goal was to move from Baltimore down to Florida full time. They moved down to Florida, got a place on the water, and this is the part that I love to tell: is they got 2 jet skis. The colors were branded in Mosquito Joe colors. One jet ski is called Mo, the other one is called Joe. And they are living their dream, and they did exactly what they said they were going to do. And we've had them back to talk to franchisees at conventions and other things. They were one of the speakers at our Pool Scouts convention, and they just had a plan and they executed the plan flawlessly. There wasn't ups and downs. Nothing is linear, right? But they had a plan and they executed it great. And I love seeing that. I mean, our mission at Buzz Franchise Brands is to enable people to realize their dreams. And one of the reasons why we've always connected with you, well, Kim, and the consultant community writ large, is that that's what we're doing. We're helping people improve their lives, getting into an opportunity. And these guys just did it perfectly.
Hey, Daily Coach fans, if you're inspired by this conversation, I invite you to email me right now to explore this franchise opportunity. My email is inquire@kimdaly.tv. That's what gets us out of bed every day. That is the entire purpose of this YouTube channel and Kim Daly TV, right? To share the good news, the inspiring stories in franchising of everyday people changing their lives. And how fun to hear that a pilot, a sexy pilot at that, or a corporate company, buying into a mosquito spraying company. Like, that's a Kim Daly kind of story.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's everybody thinks about like in this case, mosquitoes, outdoor pest control. Like, this is terrible. But it's all about taking care of customers, providing a service they find valuable, taking care of your employees, building, treating them better than they've been treated anywhere else. And then over time, you just build this great foundation and you build this business that, when you wake up 5 years later or 3 years later after hard work, you've got something that's really valuable. And it's fun to see, and you feel rewarded. You feel like you've achieved your goals. Yes,
And
equity
equity
is yours
that's
to
yours to
sell.
sell, at the
Right.
end of it. That's the goal, right? Whether you're the franchisor selling it or you're the franchisee building it and selling it. That was a great way to set that up. Awesome. So, okay, so let's flip back now to the conversation about the entrepreneur maybe thinking about building a brand. So, let's talk about private equity and
Yep.
franchising today in 2021 because there's a lot of private equity money coming in. Like, why? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean they're coming in two different places, right? I think they're coming in at the franchisor level, and that's where they've come in historically. And they like the franchising business because for a couple of different reasons. One, we have franchise agreements that typically are 10 years in duration, so there's certainty around revenue and commitment levels. There's also not a lot of capex from the company that's required. So we can continue to grow, and it's really about adding people, and it's not about adding capex. So they like those business. They're very they're cash flow positive, cash flow accretive type businesses that they like. What we're seeing recently is private equity coming into as franchisees. And historically, we've seen that in the restaurant industry, bricks and mortar. You saw a lot of that, but we're now starting to see it in service brands and other types of concepts of franchisees, where they're coming in and they're either doing one of two things. They're either focused on a single brand and growing as a franchisee, or in some cases, they're focused on certain markets and becoming multi-franchisees, multi-brand franchisees. And both work really well. And as long as and it's the same thing, as long as they can get good people to work for them, private equity is willing to work in that. You're seeing a lot of it in the gym space, with companies like Planet Fitness
Planet
and other
Fitness.
things, right?
Yeah, we've had,
Big.
not to interrupt you, but there's a video I've put out on this very channel with a former Planet Fitness franchisee who was paid a very nice multiple to walk away at 58 years old and is, set for probably 3 lifetimes.
Right. No, and that's great. And that he spent his time, and now they're handing it off to the next, either the next generation, or in this case, private equity. And so, and then the final answer to your question, why, is just that there's just so much money out there in these private equity funds. They've got to deploy it. They're willing to pay some multiples that are higher than maybe they have historically, because they've got to put the capital to work over a short period of time. And so, and that doesn't seem to be abating. That just continues. At least for the last several years, I've seen a lot of money out there.
And so, there's the Daily Coach loves to sort of debunk this another myth that truly smart investors don't invest in franchising, and you've just dispelled that in so many ways. But where do you think, like, why do you think that people with advanced degrees, or just people who've come from big corporate backgrounds, sometimes have a stigma about franchising? And as someone who came from a really big corporate background and has made a lot of money through franchising, what do you say to those people?
I we're starting to see a lot more of those. They have different names for them, corporate refugees or others coming in, and we like those people because there's something that you learn from being part of a large organization, right? Sometimes you learn the things you don't like about business and management of people, and that's important.
50% of what you do want is 50% of what you don't want.
But you've learned how to, what we've seen with recent people that have come through here is they learn how to manage teams, they learn how to lead teams, they learn how to sell parts of businesses in a large company. We love people like that because they've got the mindset. Now all we need to do is teach them the parts specifically about the unique business. And some people have the stigma about getting themselves over that. I mean, I over spraying for mosquitoes or cleaning homes or cleaning pools. My view on this is, if you remove yourself a little bit from the service, just understand, is it valuable to the customer? Think about the relationships you're having with the customer and the lives you're changing with the employees that you hire, and that you're doing it all for yourself. That's the thing. And what I've found with people is, it's usually what people say to me after they've been in the business for 6 months to a year is, I said, do you have any regrets? The regret is always, I wish I had done it earlier. I wish I had done it earlier. It consistently comes up. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a risk profile in terms of where they are in in their lives. But it's something, but it's always the same answer. I really wish I had started this earlier, but it doesn't matter. I'm in it now and I'm really happy. So
Yeah, so if anybody out there watching this video has been thinking about this for a long time, there's never going to be a right time to take that leap.
right.
The time is right now because you're watching this video. So leave a comment below, reach directly out to me because you can achieve your dreams in franchising. It's just all about finding the right partner, which is in fact why the Daily Coach has a business to help you not have to worry about that on your own. That's what I do. I cut through all the chase, and I know which companies have leadership like Kevin Wilson and which don't. Which are the ones to be moving and shaking with, and which are the ones to potentially stay away from at this point in time. So if you're inspired by this, reach out. Let's go. I'm ready to go if you're ready to go. So Kevin, let's wrap this up. Let's talk a little bit about Buzz Franchise Brands and your vision for, one thing you were saying when you said pool cleaning and mosquitoes, I thought, wow, reoccurring. So home services, of course, but then reoccurring revenue. Is that sort of the simple business model that sort of like you have it? Is each business run exactly the same and it's just a different vertical?
Yeah, almost great observation. So we have three businesses. We have a home cleaning business, a residential pool cleaning business, and then we have swim lessons and instructions. And we teach, that's British Swim School. In that case, we teach survival skills to toddlers all the way up through children. But if you look at the similarities across these three businesses, there's more similarities than there are differences. One, they're all low investment. Two, the fixed operating costs on all of them are very low. Three, all are very high gross margin businesses. So there's, after you cover your employees, there's very little to cover after that. You get to a very quick break even, and they're all ramped very fast. But one of the things we like about all of these businesses is we get in front of the customer either weekly or bi-weekly. And in the case of British Swim School, we're getting in front of those customers a couple times a week. And so when that happens, we end up getting really good engagement with the customers. That gives us really high retention, and ultimately it gives us good referrals. And that's what you build your business on, are referrals from other customers. And so all three of these, we like them. They're great businesses. They're all a little bit different in terms of the service they provide, but they are all great businesses, all have great leadership in place. And so we'd love to talk to any of your candidates, Kim, who are interested in learning more.
If anybody watching this video has seen any other Daily Coach videos, Kevin Wilson just summarized so many videos that I spent 10 or 15 minutes trying to make one point on. So low fixed costs, big margin services, sometimes the unsexy businesses,
Right.
not the ones that you're going to find on Entrepreneur 500. Those are some of the ones that truly smart investors are looking at for all of the reasons that he just mentioned. If you are inspired by this video, whether it's to learn more about the private equity route, or if you're just inspired to take your own journey into starting your own franchise business, I absolutely encourage you to leave a comment below, and then I can pre-qualify you and check the territory for any of the businesses that you may have interest in. And, maybe we have a deeper conversation to make sure that what your goals are, these, can be achieved through the businesses at Buzz Brands first. Does that sound like a good idea, Kevin?
I love it. It's a great idea. As Kim knows, I make a lot of referrals to people, and Kim's one of the best out there. So, you won't go wrong with Kim. She'll understand what your needs are and get you into the right location.
It's so true. You blessed me with so many of your amazing friends. I love you so much for that. All right. So you heard it here. If I can help you inspire you toward any of the Buzz Brands or any franchise concept, I encourage you to leave a comment below. If you've enjoyed this video, absolutely don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you ring the bell, then you'll be alerted every time the Daily Coach has a new inspiring message to share with you. Thank you so much, Kevin Wilson, for joining the Daily Coach YouTube channel. And to all of you, I am Kim Daly, your Daily Coach. If you found this inspiring, please contact me at inquire@kimdaly.tv. My consulting services are totally free to you. Again, that email is inquire@kimdaly.tv. I can't wait to hear from you.